Rishi Sunak has urged disillusioned Tory voters not to surrender the country to chaos under Labour. Your reaction to that? Well, let's get the reaction of my next guest, Sir Iain Duncan Smith. He's a former Conservative Party leader. Bearing in mind we spoke to a Labour representative a little bit earlier, balance on the show. But good afternoon to you, Sir Iain.
Hi, Julie.
Thank you for joining us. When Rishi Sunak's urging disillusioned Tory voters not to surrender to to chaos under Labour, what does he mean by that?
Oh, I think that two things come into mind. I didn't write it, but this is what I think he means. The first is that the one thing you know about Keir Starmer is you don't know about Keir Starmer. In other words, the man that supported Jeremy Corbyn quite happily said he'd make a great prime minister, now says he didn't really support him. And so he flip-flops all over the place. And the second thing is, you know very well that Labour's plan overall will not be able to be managed without seriously raising taxes or borrowing massively. They've talked about borrowing, but they'll have to raise more. Just take their desire to go to 2030 on the net zero targets. That will cost at least £100 billion to do the net alone, the electricity grid. And they're not coming clean about that. In fact, there was a little recording of a Labour MP who owned up to that fact earlier on.
Darren Jones, yes.
So what he's saying is you're going to be surrendering to a massive tax bill over a period of time.
But hold on a minute, Sir Iain. Tories are signed up to pretty much the same thing, and you're both, along with other major parties, signed up to 2050 net zero. It's going to cost billions. Yes, you are. Different. You just pushed it back by 5 years.
Let me speak, will you, please? 2030, he's moving it back by 5 years.
Oh, well, in that case.
No, hold on a second. The 2050 target, I don't happen to agree with these targets at all, but the reality is that the 5 years that we bring it back massively increases the burden of cost because you concertina all the costs in a short period of time on the British tax-paying public. There is a whole nonsense about this debate where religion has taken over, net zero religion, and not a sense about this. Ordinary people
with your date or the Labour date or the other parties' dates, it's still going to be a huge cost to British taxpayers and British consumers, and none of you parties are being honest about that. In the same way, you talked about the cost of the extra taxation or borrowing that Labour will have to do. Institute of Fiscal Studies did their analysis of all the parties, but particularly Tory and the Conservative parties' manifestos, and basically said you're both lying to the electorate because you're both going to have to put up taxes because even on your current plans, let alone anything else that happens in the future, you have to get more money into coffers.
Well, what you have to do is to free the economy, number one. And that means bringing interest rates down, which is the Bank of England's desire, but we aren't in the right state for that. And secondly, you need to lower taxes on people and on houses. A simple fact. Otherwise, we will have over-tightened the economy. I think we're in danger of doing it right now. And anything that Labour is saying now is about tightening the economy further. That's the point. We can argue about, figures of this and figures of that. The truth is the British economy has the propensity to grow now. The recent figures that I saw the other day for the Purchase Managers Index, which is a very good indicator of where the economy is going, shows that the UK has the ability to grow. They believe it's going to grow faster than the Eurozone and faster than France and Germany. That means you need to ease off the burdens on corporations and businesses and lower the burden on individuals. A simple economic fact.
And you know what the answer to that would be, not just from Labour or Reform or Lib Dems or Greens or SNP or whatever, but from voters will be, but you've put taxes up to the highest level for 70 years.
Of course we did, because you had COVID, which blew a hole in the economy. We had a 10% fall in the British economy. It was followed by the economic crisis because Russia invaded Ukraine. People may have forgotten about it. Every economy in the developed world faced this problem. It's how you deal with it. We need to get taxes down. The government has said, Rishi Sunak said, that is our ambition and plan, to reduce taxation, reduce the burdens on British people. That is not the plan of the Labour Party. That is the difference. Whether or not you believe in a figure here or a figure there, the principle behind the way that the British government under Rishi Sunak goes about it is to lower the burden now from a very high burden because of those crises to, by the way, the biggest crisis ever to face a government in peacetime. We are coming out of it. Now is the time to ease off.
Okay. Can we talk about some of the polls? Because it does seem to me that actually, I mean, to a certain extent, that even the Tory leadership, even Rishi Sunak, although he did come out fighting yesterday, it was my most spirit I've seen in him in a long time, perhaps a bit too late, just a week before the general election day, that actually everyone's given up. They don't think the Tories are going to win. There are many who are running seats, and we don't discuss any individual seats here, but where, you know, people, and I think actually in a lot of cases, a lot of very good people from different political parties will lose their seats on the current polling. But latest poll from MRP, with these big, massive polls, is looking at a huge majority, sort of 250 or something for the Labour Party. Tories going down to the worst they've been since 1900, not even being the official opposition. Liberal Democrats taking over that position, and Reform UK taking 18 seats. So previously, the threat from Nigel Farage's various parties, UKIP, Brexit Party, Reform UK, has been that they prevent the Tories from winning. They get Labour in, but they don't take any seats themselves. This is suggesting they could win 18 seats themselves. What do you say to that?
I don't believe a single poll till July the 5th. I mean, I've been here, this is my 11th election, and honestly, I don't bother with national polls. The key thing here is they talk about individual constituencies. Getting a poll right on an individual constituency has an enormous margin for error because you can't get the demographics right on individual constituencies. So all of this game, I mean, I would ban polls, frankly, until you've had the election. Because
some countries do actually.
Well, France does. I know. My point is, this is like a game being played out. Who can go worse? Who can go better? I honestly think, frankly, the only poll at the end of the day that does matter is in a week's time.
Do you genuinely believe that the Conservatives can win the next election?
I was here in 92. I was here in 97. I have a feeling about elections. This is not 97. This is 92.
What we've 92, got, of course, when John made a surprise, you know, everyone thought Kinnock was going to walk in. John Major won. In 97, of course, it was kind of almost a foregone conclusion. Blair was going to win, but then the majority was bigger than they'd expected. Are you saying you think that the Tories genuinely could win this election?
As I say, I've been in 11 elections.
Okay.
And I talk to a lot of people, and I'm doing so right now. And what I get from this is anger with the government, annoyance, being fed up, cost of living crisis, difficulties they've had to face. Absolutely. Rishi's owned up to the problems behind that. As I said earlier on, COVID, the cost of living crisis, all of this has affected every government in the developed world, but we are getting it right. But the main point is, when you talk to them about it, they are not set in concrete about what they're going to do. I find the biggest issue isn't about reform, it's about people thinking of not even bothering. That's one of the big issues now.
But again, people staying at home, that's what happened in 1997. Tory voters stayed at home.
Let me finish. In 97, people could name Blair. They knew exactly all about him and Brown. There were Conservatives who were going to Labour at that stage because they had decided it was time to change. Right now, the feeling I've got from the electorate is they're annoyed and angry, but they simply don't get Labour. I have yet to come across a single constituent who says to me, do you know what? I like that Starmer bloke and I think he's right. I'm going to vote for him. I don't get any of that at all. Where I did in 96 and 97.
Right, so you feel that's
92,
different?
It was very similar. Doubts about Kinnock, doubts about the Labour Party was still there. They're still there today.
Okay. Can I ask you, just time
is changing. Time's
against us. Can I ask you just finally, in terms of the things that have gone wrong in this campaign, you know, rain but poor when Rishi Sunak was announcing the election outside number 10, the decision to leave the D-Day commemorations early, which definitely cut through. The latest thing to really cut through has been the betting scandal. We've now got, you know, apparently a minimum of 7 police officers being investigated by the Met over placing bets on the date of the election, including, of course, one of the Prime Minister's close protection officers. We've got numerous MPs, I think, and aides being investigated. Some 15 candidates or aides being investigated. 2 have been suspended by the party. A Labour candidate is suspended. We've got a cabinet minister who says he's placed bets, although long before there was any information about the date of the election. We've got one Tory, as was Tory MP, a candidate who's been asked whether he placed, is it true he's placed £8,000 on him losing? How much has this betting scandal impacted, do you think, voters? And should there be a ban on political betting during an election, or certainly by people involved involved in the campaign?
Well, I'm the co-chair or deputy chair of the all-party parliamentary group on gambling online harms. so I suspect you'll probably get my answer before I even open my mouth. I think the gambling industry is rampant. I think that they are a force for bad now in life. What you're seeing amongst MPs is very much reflected, I'm afraid, across the whole of the UK. People are betting on almost anything and everything. When it comes to members of parliament, politicians, I have a very dim view about people who bet on politics. That's not our job. Our job is a serious job. What we do should not be a matter for a flutter of money. A horse race, that's fine. A football match, okay. But not if you're involved in politics. Now, whether we ban it or we make it internally, each party, an offence, one way or the other, this has got to stop. This shows a casualness and a ridiculous sense about what we do. This is not a joke. I think this is, for me, a vocation. I've given up my life for all of this. This is 32 years in Parliament. I've fought for the issues I believe in. That's what politics is all about. It shouldn't be about a bit of a flutter and a bit of fun. Okay. It is a serious business.
Sir Iain Duncan Smith, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Former Conservative Party leader Sir Iain Duncan Smith.